Welcome back, baseball family. Like Briggs said, we're going to get into one of our favorite documentaries called Fastball. Now, I got to tell you, I love this documentary. I watched it for the third time this week. Um, it's fantastic. I can't get enough of it. I learned something new every single time. It's narrated by Kevin Costner. Um,
Oh,
so you got Crash Davis talking about fastballs. How great is that?
it's awesome. It's so awesome. I've seen this was my fourth time watching it as well.
Was it your fourth time watching it?
I sit down and
Man.
watch it. I ask people, I'm like, have you seen Fastball? They're
Mhm.
like, no. And if they're any kind of baseball fan, I'm like, okay, sit down.
Yeah.
What are you doing right now? You want to watch
real.
it? Yeah.
But
So right
seriously,
now
though,
it's on Amazon Prime for those of you who have Prime. It's free on Prime Video. So
that's right. Now I'm going to put a video or a picture of it up so you can see exactly what to look for. I mean, granted,
Yep.
you can just search it and find it that way. But anyways, so really what it does is it goes through, talks about the science of the fastball. I guess pushing the the limit with human capability. Is that what they talk about? I can't
Yeah,
get the
that's
phrasing
the
right.
that's essentially the crux is what is possible, and we'll get into this, but what is possible for a pitcher physiologically, and then what is possible for a guy at the other end trying to hit that fastball, mentally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Well, and they do talk a little bit about the physics of it, right? Because I can't remember who it was, but somebody once said it might have been like Hank Aaron. I think who said the hardest pitch to hit is a rising fastball. Now,
Yeah,
they say that a fastball cannot go up. Okay,
physicists. That's what they
Physicists
say. Yes.
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you, Brig. I'm not sold. I mean, I know we have the StatCast and everything, the pitch tracking that shows
Sure.
us that a fastball will not go up. But man, I had a buddy in high school who had some wicked spin on his two-seamer,
Yeah.
and I swear to you that thing went up. I swear to you I saw it go up at least once.
Well, Hank
what it
Aaron in the
was-
documentary. Oh, go ahead. Keep going. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to describe what happened. So we were catching, or I was catching just like regular. They were doing bullpen, but with live hitting in the batting cage.
Yeah.
And so he threw this pitch. He threw his two-seamer, and I'm not kidding you, Brig. I was set up low and outside, okay, and the ball was coming straight for my mitt. And I knew I was going to catch it because he's a right-hander. I was going to catch it over my left. My plan was to catch it over my left leg. It was going to be
Right.
It was going to be backdoor two-seamer. It was going to start outside and run back over across the outside corner of the plate. I was prepared for where it was going to stop because I caught that pitch from him. I'd been catching him for 4 years at this point. I caught him a ton, so I knew exactly what his two-seamer was going to do. But Brig, I'm not kidding you. It was coming straight for my glove where it was. The thing ran up and in and hit the kid in the elbow.
Oh. Ugh.
Like it ran a foot and a half. And it
Wow.
went up. I swear to you, it went up. It had to have gone up
Yeah.
from what I saw. Now, physics says, and the way the physicist explained it in the documentary, probably
Right.
what happened was it got some ride, right? Which means that it's not dropping at the same rate.
Right.
And it could have been just my eyes saying, this is where I'm expecting it to be. This is the level that I'm expecting it to be at. But since it had some ride on it and some run to go with it, that it looked like it kind of swooped up.
So
But
Hank
man.
Aaron said he basically doesn't care what anybody says, that he has seen a baseball rise. So then the documentary cuts to Justin Verlander, who says, no, it's impossible. Baseballs don't
Right.
rise. But
And Nolan
then
Ryan,
then Justin Verlander immediately goes, but it can ride. And I'm like,
Right.
what the freak is the difference? And so he explains it. I mean, the guy knows better than me, sure, of course. But he explains what he means by ride, and then they go to Nolan Ryan, just like you were saying. And he's like, oh, yeah, that happens.
yeah, definitely get some ride on it. And I think like looking back, that's probably what happened to that pitch was it got some ride. But at the same time, I mean, 100 years ago, physicists were saying that a curveball was just an optical illusion, that the ball wasn't actually curving.
Right.
and we now know
False.
there's actual break
Wrong.
on that ball.
A big one.
Yeah, yeah, you can get a real loop on a curveball. Because I think there was even a pitcher at one point who said he can tell me it's an illusion all day, but I'll stand him behind a tree and I'll hit him with curveballs. Then he told me no, it's an optical illusion.
That's awesome. I've never heard that. That's fantastic.
So for a long time I was like, no, it'll go up because I saw it. But after seeing the explanation of ride and like I said, pitch tracing,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's probably what happened. But man, the jury was out with me for a long time on that until I saw Fastball. So you will learn some things. You'll learn some physics. You'll learn some science about pitching during this documentary as well.
You're also going to learn a lot about history, and that's the coolest part for me is this kind of the history and the culture. Those are my big things. And so the one of the first people to ever have their pitch tracked was Bob Feller. Actually, everybody knows who Bob Feller is, and if you don't, look it up. Great pitcher, Hall of Fame pitcher. So Bob Feller, 1946, which was 74 years ago, by the way, he threw 98.6. Now here's the thing, and was it Walter Johnson was the other one that they. So Walter Johnson threw a pitch, and he raced a motorcycle, and then Bob Feller threw a pitch, and they did it through an Army contraption, they call it, where the pitch is 7 feet, but the cage that he throws it through breaks wires, and that triggers the timer, and then the timer tracks it all the way until it hits a metal plate past the end. And this is how Remington tracked feet per second on a muzzle, right, on rounds exiting rifles. So they got it set up for him, and Bob Feller threw 98.6 miles an hour according to that test. Now that was 74 years ago in 1946. It was proven later in the show that maybe he threw even a little faster. And that's a tease.
Right. Well, and the other thing to think about when you look at that test is that they place that the first part of the contraption, those wires, they place that at 60 feet 6 inches. So that's where the ball is going to cross the plate, and then they had that metal plate 15 feet behind that.
Yes.
So if you're throwing, I mean, even if he's throwing 100 miles an hour or 98 or whatever, he's going to lose considerable velocity by the time it gets to that back plate, especially if it has those wires.
And like they said, it measured 7 feet beyond where the batter is standing.
Yeah.
And so you have to back it up, and then you have to account for today's standards, which we'll get into and let's do it right now. So this first contraption effectively measured the pitch 7 feet behind the batter. But today they measure the ball's velocity 10 feet in front of the rubber on the mound.
Yes.
It's 10 feet away, and so it's basically the moment it leaves the pitcher's hand, they tracked it. That's what they measure.
Yeah, and with that, you get Aroldis Chapman, who has the fastest official pitch, throwing at 105.1.
Yep.
Gas.
That's some gas.
Then, what's that?
Yeah, that's gassy. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
See what I did there?
I see what you did there. But so you've got that with Chapman, but then they also, like you said, they kind of take into account the distance of where things were measured and do some physics and math and all kinds of numbers and things like that. They come up with some other numbers for what I guess you could kind of propose as the actual velocity of those pitches. Do we want to get into that, or we want to leave that a mystery?
Well, I think we should leave it a mystery. I think we should encourage people to go watch the documentary and find out for themselves, because the documentary is gripping. I found it just mesmerizing.
Yeah. Well, even my wife, I was sitting there watching it, and she was doing some other stuff, like she's doing some cleaning and like folding laundry and stuff while I was working on some stuff while I was watching it, and she ended up just like coming and sitting on the end of the bed and watching it with me and got hooked, because it is that gripping.
I'm not surprised. And the way they build out the sequencing of the information is just stellar. So some of the people you'll see in the documentary, Andrew McCutcheon, Justin Verlander, David Price, Hammer and Hank Aaron. They talk about people like Honus Wagner and Sandy Koufax and Bob Feller, and Goose Gossage is in there. They open with Goose Gossage. And
Goose
it's like...
Goose Gossage is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm always kind of upset that they lead with him because he's so good. He has such good material, but then at the same time, he's a great hook. He's a
great hook.
He's so entertaining. He does such a good job.
He is his own caricature. He's a caricature of himself, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite thing that he says, I gotta share this. My favorite thing that he says is he says that people meet him off the field. They meet him when he's out walking around. And like, oh, you're not anything like you were on the baseball field. He says, no, if I walked around like that all the time, they'd lock me up.
Yeah.
I thought that was good. One
of my favorite parts of the documentary is when they, like, right in the middle of everything, they break down what exactly the difference is between 92-mile-an-hour fastball and a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. And the people they get on there that talk about it, like Brandon Phillips is one of them. He's all-star second baseman. He says at 92, you can basically read the MLB logo, and you can count the stitches in the baseball.
Yeah.
He said, but at 100, it looks like a golf ball.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing difference.
It is, and I totally believe it with that amount of difference because that's insane.
They said that so if you track them side by side, 100-mile-an-hour pitch and a 92-mile-an-hour pitch, by the time they've thrown it exactly the same moment, by the time the 100-mile-an-hour pitch reaches home plate, reaches the strike zone, the 92-mile-an-hour pitch has 4.5 feet remaining on the travel distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
4.5 feet.
I know. When they asked him,
what?
I can't remember who said it, but they asked one of the guys when they first posing that question. They said, "What's the difference between a 100-mile-an-hour fastball and a 92-mile-an-hour fastball?" I can't remember who it was, but he says, "Home runs."
Yeah, yeah. That's a home run.
Which, like, if you're not used to that kind of speed, like even a 92-mile-an-hour fastball is fast.
It'll mess you up. Yeah.
The average person, it'll get up on you fast. It'll be gone before you know what happened. But for those guys to say that 92 is that much slower than 100, that's saying something because 92 is still pretty fast if you're not used to it.
Totally. They said, so a 100-mile-an-hour fastball gets to home plate in 396 milliseconds, which is faster than you can blink.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like, my brain doesn't even have room for that information. I can't even envision a situation where, you know what I mean, where I got to think that quickly.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you've been at a game, if you've been at a major league or minor league game where somebody's throwing like that, that's you've kind of seen it. You know, that the ball is basically just a blur. You see the pitcher wind up, stretch, and go through his motion. Next thing you know, you hear the pop of the glove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They say
I can't imagine. Yeah.
They say that it sounds like a shotgun when in the bullpen or at the catcher's mitt when it hits it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really does. Yeah,
it really does.
It's something else. But
it's special, man.
That kind of gas when it's being thrown. One of my other favorite lines from that whole thing is it's very early. It's got to be within the first 5 minutes. They ask everybody, "What does a fastball sound like?" Or can you hear a fastball? And Derek Jeter says, "Yeah, it sounds like trouble."
Yeah, that's right. That was Derek Jeter.
I was like, "You bet it does." You hear that thing coming at you.
Yeah,
not even.
Just it sounds like a buzzsaw.
It does. You can hear it. You know it's coming. You know it's trouble. Yeah, I thought that was a perfect description of a fastball and what it sounds like. But there's one guy that they talk about who was actually somebody I've never heard of. A lot of the guys on the documentary, like the younger guys, had never heard of him, and I thought he was interesting.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Steve Dalkowski. Okay. He spent several years in the minor leagues. The big thing was that he never got to the big leagues. because he had control issues. And they said he was fine left and right. He could throw the ball over the plate, but the problem was up and down.
Right.
And what they said, and this goes back to that rising fastball argument, they said that he threw so hard and put so much backspin on the ball that it would just go up. They said try to throw it a foot in front of the plate and it would end up over the catcher's head because it had like that, I guess, extra ride, and it would go up on him because of all that backspin. And like I said, the jury's kind of out on that, whether that's what really happened or he just was that wild up and down. But a lot of guys were saying because he's a legend, he's legendary. There's no video of him because he never made it to the bigs. But everybody they asked said he threw harder than anybody they've ever seen, ever.
Yeah. Freaky hard, right? Freaky hard.
Yeah, freaky hard. And then eventually, he sounds like I think that sounded like he tore his UCL from what it sounds like.
Yep. Something like that.
The ligament. Yeah, the ligament, you end up having Tommy John on. He tried to come back and just wasn't ever able to make it. And so that's why a lot of people don't know about him.
Right.
But among ball players who played around him, he was legendary. Legendary because of that fastball.
It's an amazing documentary, and I think when they finally drop the final punchline, because let me drop one more piece of information on you. When they tested Bob Feller and some of these other guys, they did it without being in an actual game, a live game scenario. And so they're talking to these guys, and they're saying, okay, throw this against a motorcycle, right? Beat the motorcycle to the paper and throw it as hard and as fast as you can. That's a different scenario than it is pitching in a live game. But when they compare them to Aroldis Chapman and all the others, and they kind of normalize the circumstances as best they can, man, there's really only a couple of things that get in the way. Oh, man, that's all I can tell you. You got to just go watch it.
You do have to go watch it, and you'll be surprised. And I'll say this: you'll be surprised by some of those numbers at the end of the doc.
Yep.
Because there's a couple shocking numbers there, and it's totally worth it. It's worth the watch. It's about an hour and a half long. I want to say it's an hour and 26 minutes. Like we said, you'll find it on Amazon Prime. Fantastic watch. Go watch it as soon as you finish listening or watching.
Yeah, just go jump on there and watch it.